The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Josh Shigala from thestandard.io,
Giggity giggity.
Robert Allen from Bitcoin and Friends,
Howdy, howdy.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Dan Eve reporting live with COVID.
Martine Wishmare from General Bytes.
Hello, hodlers.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. Goldman Sachs says Bitcoin is more vulnerable to Fed rate hikes than ever before as the market's price increases 5 times this year. Mainstream Bitcoin adoption, who knew we were already there, means that Bitcoin is more vulnerable to Federal Reserve policy than ever, says Goldman Sachs. The price of Bitcoin has fallen sharply along with tech stocks as fears that the Fed could hike interest rates at every meeting this year, a total of 7 times. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, Bitcoin, and the Federal Reserve?
It seems like the typical story of the Fed. There's nothing new to say about the Fed and their reaction to Bitcoin. And this is globally, not only to the Fed, but regulators in certain countries, how they're sort of secretly trying to stop Bitcoin businesses by doing certain things to keep them out of the space. I think everyone's running scared of it. They're really starting to see that Bitcoin is here to stay, and if it's not Bitcoin, it's crypto as a whole. It's not going away. What's happening in the space is so vast, and they are finally waking up. And I see these stories of like, oh, so-and-so is finally understanding. Oh, wow, crypto is not going away. Did they just get it? And these are like heads of major banks and heads of different reserve banks around the world. It's like, if they're only now figuring out that Bitcoin is something to be thought of as a threat, then I really don't think they're the smartest cookie in the jar, and they just need to be eaten up.
Robert Allen, your thoughts on Bitcoin and the Fed?
I mean, I don't know how many times people will fall for this nonsense. Do we really believe the Federal Reserve is going to hike interest rates? Give me a break. Give me a break. I think the only thing they can do is like head fake and head fake and head fake and hope that people will respond when they do that, but they can't raise rates. If they raise rates, the bond market will collapse and the entire economy will tank. And I mean, it's like a drug addict who's way past ever becoming sober again, like claiming like, I'm going to go cold turkey. No more heroin for me. It's like, no, they need smack forever. And that's how it is.
They can't lift interest rates. They just can't. Like there's no way for them to do that. They can threaten it, but there's just too much pressure to continue lower interest rates.
There was an article in The Economist, I think, where they were talking about the everything bubble and how the Fed has been inflating this for years and years and years with trillions and trillions of dollars. And the article was talking about the Fed actually popping it and what would be a disaster for, stock market investors, disaster for companies, disaster for governments, all these things. And I agree. I don't know if they can pop it. But again, the article is sounding like they're serious, like they're Fight Club type maniacs in the Fed. And they're like, let's blow it all up and see what happens. We'll survive, of course, like cockroaches. Dan Eve, your thoughts on Bitcoin and the Fed?
You know what, with the Fed, I'm fed up of hearing it. No, it's quite interesting though that they're kind of trying to say that movements of the Fed specifically are gonna shift Bitcoin so much. Bitcoin. The thing about Bitcoin is that it's a worldwide currency. It's used by many countries. So although there's probably little shifts that happen with movements from certain countries, it's counterbalanced by other positive movements in other countries. So I think that there is a lot of positive infrastructure that's being built. Not just obviously with the El Salvador doing the whole Bitcoin as legal tender, but more apps, more services that are using Bitcoin. Last week or a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Google adding it to their Google Wallet or whatever it was. It's happening all the time. So whilst you've got this negative news from the Fed potentially hiking rates and whatever, it's encountered by the positive news of building bigger. I was going to use Biden's build the 3 Bs or whatever it was, but building Bitcoin better. I don't know if that's it. But if you're a professional economist and you're only just having your Bitcoin epiphany now, like maybe think about a different profession, because it's a long time in.
Bitcoin did have the letter B first. Martin Wishmayer, your thoughts?
I think Dan is right. If you only discover Bitcoin now, fear the future, because it's already there. Yeah, well, as Bitcoiners, we always say Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, but I don't think it's that yet. It is, and it might be in the future. But for now, it's behaving like a tech stock. So, tech stocks down, Bitcoin down, but the fundamentals of Bitcoin remain unchanged, so it's pretty much unstoppable. So I don't fear the Fed too much. They can try and raise interest rates. They've been talking about that they might do that. It's European Central Bank. So, but they're as Robert already said, they're addicted to the free money. So they'll just keep printing and just get some Bitcoin. There's only 21 million of them in total.
There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. Before we move on to the exit question, it's a great time for everybody to push the thumbs up button. If you push the thumbs up button on YouTube, it helps YouTube recommend this show to other people. So the more people, and again, it's percentage based, so like 90%, 80%, we need more thumbs up. So let's move on to the exit question. The price of Bitcoin this time next week, Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
I'm going for the higher this week.
Robert Allen. Muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'd say higher, probably.
Dan Eve. This stunning optimism is overtaking me here.
Higher.
Martin Wishmayer, will you make it a sweep? Is it all higher?
No, it's higher. It's number go up technology. Remember that.
Oh, if only the magic 8-ball was here. I'm sure he would say something else. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2. President Joe Biden is going after Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, and NFTs. Yes, the United States government is waking up to the fun of regulating cryptocurrencies, and they've chosen a time where the stock market, the crypto sector, and all are going through a tumultuous time, losing large amounts of value. The SEC, the CFTC, the IRS, and FINRA are all excited to investigate Bitcoin, NFTs, and cryptocurrencies. Robert Allen, is this the point where the U.S. government finally overreaches and chases all of the smart crypto people out of the country? A disaster for the future, but in the short term, really fun for all the regulators.
I think that no. I think what we've actually seen during the Biden presidency is that a lot of the red states are going to be pushing back pretty hard on anything the federal government tries to do. And so I think if they overreach, you'll just have states that will be rebelling. I mean, you already have Arizona and Texas talking about making Bitcoin legal tender. So no, I don't think it'll happen.
Interesting. A laboratory of democracy, perhaps, from the states. Dan Eve.
Well, I think it's interesting that that Biden's gone after the national security threat rather than, I thought the approach that he would take, but because of the other Democrats that seem to be taking the environmental thing to heart, like Elizabeth Warren and stuff. So it's interesting that he's gone after the national security side. But I think with regards to NFTs, it would be quite funny if he starts trying to lay down the law and then suddenly Hunter Biden releases his art as NFTs and he's like, oh, God damn it, Hunter, you stupid son of a bitch. Why you got to do that? But I can imagine that happening. Actually, why not? If you've got art, NFTs are the next stage, right? But ultimately, if other states like Arizona can make it legal tender, that sounds pretty awesome. And there's only a certain amount that they can do federally, right? So, like, if states individually want to start accepting Bitcoin, it's going to be a lot harder to stamp it out when they start uniting, like the United States.
It would be interesting if George H.W. Bush released NFTs of his paintings. Then it would be like Iraq War, Afghanistan War, but he makes NFTs. He also likes baseball. Martine Wishmayer, your thoughts on President Biden and the United States fun time regulating cryptos?
I don't think it's a good idea, to be honest, because I think it will be like a surveillance state. This is the Compete Act, right, Thomas? This is the.
I just know that Big Brother loves you.
Okay, but I think this was called the Compete Act, and some of the wording was like prohibitions or conditions on certain transmittal of funds. And it would allow the Secretary or Treasury to ban transactions from crypto exchanges or foreign crypto exchanges, ban certain foreign or international crypto miners, and ban non-custodial wallets. So it's a very vague wording, which is done on purpose to give far-reaching powers to the government, and this is not what we want. It's what they want, but it's just unfair and it's wrong. And it would allow FinCEN, to freeze or limit transactions at will, and this is just it's just wrong. They say they just use the to comment on Dan's remark. It's like that he says it's funny that they use the terrorist excuse instead of the environmental excuse, because, well, we can disagree on environment, but you can't disagree on terrorism, so you have to vote yes on this bill. So I think this is one of the reasons they're pushing it. But I think they realize the threat now, and it's something they need to deal with. But I think this way is not the right way. No.
The phone call was coming from within the house.
Let me also just say that New York State, with the BIT license, tried to squash Bitcoin, and all they did was just drive companies out of New York State. I used to live there, and one of the reasons I left actually was the BIT license. So, yeah, I don't really worry about it. If they do, I'll probably leave the U.S. at that point, and I'm sure a lot of Bitcoiners will follow. So, the game theory is going to play out, and we're going to win. They can't
come to Portugal.
Yeah, or El Salvador or Mexico, or there's a lot of places that I would consider. So yeah, Portugal's pretty nice. I've been there.
Portugal does sound nice. Josh Shigala, your thoughts on perhaps government overreach?
Yeah, this is what governments do. They overreach. They got crazy long arms. They're like go gadget arms. But yeah, this is the whole regulatory capture deal is usually what happens is that there's this great technology. It's new. It skirted around all of the regulations. The regulators didn't know what the heck it is. And the banks absolutely hated it. They couldn't play with this thing because they'd regulated themselves they'd motored themselves into this game. And then they're looking over this wall going, what's all this fun everyone's having out there? And then, of course, they have very, very deep connections in the state. And a lot of the regulations that you see are basically banks forcing players out of the market. So they will let certain players like Coinbase, because they're so well funded, and a lesser of an extent, probably even Binance. But Binance is, even though they're well funded, they're not very well liked because they're coming from the Asian side of things, and the US like to keep stuff at home. But I think Coinbase has probably got it stitched up, and this is where the regulatory capture comes in. Is now Coinbase, if I wouldn't be surprised if in the background they're for it, because they can control that space now. And once there's enough regulation around, it means that less competition can rise up, because there's very little overhead in competing with something like selling Bitcoin. to people, apart from, having to deal with bank accounts. But there's nothing really to stop startups from jumping in, getting some funding and doing that same game. So Coinbase's game would now be get into the state, get in bed with other banks, and regulate the heck out of this to basically lock out everyone else and sit pretty for a while longer. So that's how I see it, and I think it's atrocious. It's not capitalism. It's typical crony capitalism, and it's a horrible it's a horrible thing, because the other thing is all the left go, oh, look how crappy capitalism is. It's like, yeah, it's not. That's how crappy capitalism looks, by basically forcing monopolies or duopolies onto the world through ridiculous regulation. Yeah.
It pays to be first, and you all know they won the coin toss. Moving on to the exit question, let's follow up on something that Robert was talking about in the last question. Even if they are crazy, even if it will pop the everything bubble, will the Federal Reserve raise interest rates? Yes or no? Robert Allen.
I don't think they will.
Dan Eve.
I think they will, but not till toward the end of the year. It's not going to be like a knee-jerk thing.
Martine Wishmayer.
I think Dan is right. It will take some time. They will not immediately raise the interest rates. Not just the Fed, but the same thing at the European Central Bank. They will wait until they see no other option.
Josh Shigala.
There's absolutely no way they can. If they lifted interest rate, they would absolutely destroy the US economy. It's what they should do, because by lifting them, it'll absolutely destroy it for a little while. But what's going to really destroy it is not doing that. But it kicks the can down the road, and they'd rather kick the can down the road, because then the next president can get the blame, because people are so daft. They think that everything that happened in the last 10 minutes is to blame for everything that happened in the last 10 years.
I'm going to disagree with the panel here. If all you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The Fed will raise interest rates, disaster or no, and we'll just get to watch it happen. Yay! Check out WCN Clips on YouTube. Just Google WCN Clips. Get all the clips from this show, like Ross Ulbrecht's NFT collections, what we think about the metaverse, and more at WCN Clips. There's lots of clips at WCN Clips. Moving on to issue 3. Bitcoin isn't a right-wing plot. It's inclusive by design, despite what critics say. Josh Shigala, is Bitcoin a right-wing plot? Many right-wingers prefer it, but still it's also used by liberals. Is Bitcoin just for one group, or is it for everybody?
Well, first of all, the left and right wing is a total ridiculous. It's freedom or tyranny to me. Everything else is just a distraction, and the whole left right wing is a farce that makes people think that they've got choice. Of course, if you take it on its typical, the way that you, and sorry guys, I've actually got COVID right now. I've been suffering for the last week, so my head's not screwed on that straight. But what I was going to say is that the whole thing is kind of if you look at it like the right is more about individual freedom and the left is more about collective freedom, whatever that means, then maybe it's more on the right thing, because it's the individual that holds the private keys, and it's the single unit that owns the private keys. And so in that way, yeah, I guess, but it's really an important step towards true freedom against tyranny, and that's the only dichotomy that stands. It's not left and right, and this sort of ridiculous notion that they try to divide and conquer everyone with.
In some political systems, the left and right is not just a line, but a circle, where the extreme left and the extreme right are actually close to each other. In a lot of ways, I think that's where Bitcoin is. A strange place where it can be loved by the extreme left and also loved by the extreme right, which drives everybody crazy. Robert Allen, your thoughts on Bitcoin and the left-right paradigm?
Oh boy, I don't know how much I should say here. I don't understand socialists who are into Bitcoin. I really don't. I think there's a disconnect in their brains. But yeah, I mean, look, the quote right wing, has been besmirched in history by trying to lump the Nazi Socialist Party, right? The Nazis were socialists. That's actually what the party name was, National Socialist something or other. Yeah, I mean, the right wing is more or less based on Christian morality. Christian morality respects the individual and individual rights. That's baked into the entire the Bible and the philosophy of essentially of Western free thinking men. So yeah, Bitcoin is of that design and of that ilk. And then I think on the other end, you have people who think naively that you can collectivize and achieve anything but murder and mayhem. And I think those people are fools. So Bitcoin is for freedom, and the right wing is more or less for freedom, I would say, as well.
Dan, Eve.
Well, yeah, I kind of always. Jesus.
What the fuck?
Sounds like some left-wing dogs barking.
They are, yeah. I always thought Bitcoin was apolitical, right? And I know quite a lot of people that are from different ends of the political spectrum. Our own BTC, Ben Ark is BTC socialist. He's a socialist at heart that sort of believes in Bitcoin. So he's I don't know, maybe he's a paradox. But no, I think that there's positives and negatives from both sides, right? That even though it's the individual that holds the private keys, it's the idea of Bitcoin is that it's owned by the world, right? And that's kind of a socialist thing, isn't it? That that anyone can take part, anyone can own a part of it, blah blah blah. So there obviously is a bit more responsibility that comes with it, which is owning your private keys. I don't know. The article is quite funny because it starts off with if Tom Brady and Matt Damon aren't proof enough, consider Bitcoin's vocal conservative fans. Oh, what? Matt Damon and Tom Brady? It must be a right-wing tool. Of course. And then obviously it goes on to say Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz and Newt Gingrich. And then obviously the extreme left to be and hate it for good. But I just think it's really silly that we have to kind of boil stuff down to just being left and right all the time. That you can't, the media tells you that you can't have an opinion about liking someone if they are left thinking or right thinking. You have to just disagree with them if they're one or the other. And I think that's the dumbest thing that's happening on earth right now, is saying you can't take an idea on it by its principles and evaluate it like that. You have to evaluate the human behind it and what they're saying, what their political beliefs are, in order to judge whether that statement that they're saying is correct, which is ludicrous, and it's a shit world.
Historically, many Christian ideas, such as the good of society and sharing, have been called socialist. But then again, Hitler was a Christian. So often, nothing makes any sense. Martine Wishmayer, your thoughts on the left-right Bitcoin divide?
I think I'll have to disagree with all of you here. I don't think Bitcoin is left or right. Bitcoin is a protocol, just like the World Wide Web runs on HTTP. The internet, the web, gave everybody a voice and basically removed some of the power in many countries around the world from those who were in charge of information. I lived in countries that even had a minister of information, everything had to go via the minister of information in, for example, Syria and places like that. And the internet took away power from those state monopolies. The only thing that was missing was a payment layer, because we were still stuck with credit cards in the fiat banking system. So now Bitcoin is removing the power or removing the monopoly to create money and to be the only from those governments. So it will make them a little bit less powerful. So I don't think it's left or right. It's just a protocol. It's by the people. It's for the people, and it will give us people a little bit more power in the future, and in this case, financial power, and it will erode power on governments worldwide. So, yes, it's definitely a threat to any government, but not a terrorist threat or anything. It's just a threat to their monopoly on printing money. So, yeah, not left, not right, but definitely a threat for both parties.
I think Martinez nailed it here. Bitcoin is a threat for entrenched power of any kind on the left or the right.
I think that's why the vast majority of early Bitcoiners would consider themselves anarcho-capitalists or voluntarists, because it really they didn't care about politics. They really didn't want politicians or governments involved. They were just, this is a thing, and just leave me the hell alone. I want to trade with who I want to trade. Oh, there's someone in Iran making music in their mum's basement. Don't stop me from buying a track from them, please. And so you can send them some Bitcoin, and yeah, here, use your MP3. So the notion that it's political is funny, because people are kind of politically minded, because there's a lot of philosophy you have to. There's a steep learning curve to anarcho-capitalism to understand what does that even mean, and I guess people would call that an extreme right-wing philosophy, but at the same time, it's inherently a no-wing philosophy, because it literally means no state, no government, and rather doing voluntary interactions and trying to figure out complex social problems without the use of violence. And so yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
Exit question: is part of Bitcoin becoming mainstream overcoming the left-right divide, so that left-wingers, right-wingers, libertarians, everyone can be into Bitcoin because everyone's into money, right? Robert Allen.
It's a good question. I guess, yeah, I mean, the world is probably not going to overnight become staunchly conservative everywhere. So there'll probably be people who are just conflicted and confused, but they'll still use Bitcoin. So yeah.
Dan Eve.
I think it is one of the hurdles, yeah, and as we're seeing now with the main FUD, which is usually the environmental FUD, which it stems a bit more from the Democrat side with the green sort of deal and stuff like that. It's going to be politicized a lot more that Bitcoin is bad because of damn whales being boiled.
Martine Wishmare.
I totally forgot the question, Thomas.
Is Bitcoin becoming politically mainstream as it overcomes the left-right divide?
Yeah. We are like so mainstream, but I think we can still grow.
Always more welcome. Everyone's welcome. Josh Segala, your thoughts?
Yeah, Bitcoin. When we first started seeing the original conferences happening, and there was a few people there, it was all hardcore libertarians, ANCAPs, and over time, people started coming along, like, regulators started showing up a lot, and like, oh, I can't wait to listen to this regulator. And you're like, why do you want to listen to the regulator? Who gives a fuck what he says? And then it's like, now this banker's joining us. Oh, this banker, and then after a while, and now you go to these conferences. I would never even know where that I'm at a crypto conference anymore. It's just full of statist shills. So and I just think, and it's the same thing with the wider community. It's everyone. Everyone's interested, because if it's not the philosophy of freedom that gets you, it might be the technology and the maths that gets you, or the cryptography. If it's not that, it might be the moonshots and the greed that gets you. If it's not that, it might be actually sending value across the ocean without someone taking a massive cut. And if it's not that, then it might be for some other reason. So eventually it just gets everyone.
It's interesting, even in a libertarian community like Bitcoin, the appeal to authority never gets old. Sure, if someone like nobody like Mad Bitcoins tells you to buy Bitcoin, who cares? But if the Winklevi twins or Michael Saylor or Brock Pierce or someone on the TV like Kramer tells you to buy it, well, then that you should listen to. And to go back to what Dan was saying, it's going to be interesting in the environmental side when Bitcoin needs allies on the right to fight the left. Then it will be interesting on the other side when Bitcoin needs allies on the left to fight the right. Truly, the enemy of our enemy is our friend, or the enemy of our enemy is our enemy. We just have to wait longer to figure that one out. Moving on to issue 1, 2, 3, 4. Issue 4. SEC dashes spot Bitcoin ETF hopes with Fidelity rejection. Regulators reject a proposal to list a Fidelity Bitcoin trust. The filing says that the bid doesn't meet the standards to protect investors. Yes, even Fidelity, the giant bank and investment company, can't get a Bitcoin spot ETF, an ETF where you could actually buy Bitcoin at the price for the Bitcoin rather than buying a future or some kind of a fund. Dan, Eve, why can't we get this ETF? Everybody else says we should have it. We have futures ETFs. We are mainstream as Tom Brady and Matt Damon, but we can't have an ETF.
Yeah, it is strange you've got the futures that have been okayed, and the reason they said, well, obviously I haven't read into it in depth, but the generalization is that it didn't meet the standards to prevent fraud and manipulation. Well, you'd have thought that the controls and checks and balances around the actual ETF itself would prevent fraud, but you know, Bitcoin is a tool, it's a protocol. You can't prevent fraud everywhere. You can only prevent fraud that's happening in your operations around how you're buying and selling that Bitcoin. And reference to the manipulation, at what stage? I mean, even now, the market cap of Bitcoin is, you know, it's $750 billion. Right? So to say that it could be easily manipulated nowadays, surely that's hogwash. Like how can you easily manipulate $750 billion market cap, you know, on hundreds and hundreds of exchanges around the world? That's got to be some really coordinated effort. Maybe a lot of tether, but no, but you know, the bigger it grows, the harder it becomes to manipulate price, especially at those levels. Interestingly, like we were saying about the politicization of Bitcoin in that previous article. Well, this one says Hester Peirce, currently the only Republican commissioner at the SEC, said at the event that she thinks the regulator should have greenlit a spot Bitcoin ETF a long time ago. So they quote, the only person defending Bitcoin there actually is a Republican at the SEC, which is quite interesting. So maybe that article probably has a bit of more substance to it. That, you know, the more conservatives that get into the SEC, the more likely we are to see a Bitcoin spot ETF.
It's an interesting casino where you can only play the $100 slot machines, but you can't play craps or roulette. Martine Wishmayer, your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF?
You know, with so many rejected ETFs, you'd think there is a hidden agenda at the SEC, but, you know, of course, we don't know the truth about that. So, you know, this is all for protecting the consumers. And I think we talked about these ETFs before, and I said it's really not for me. It's not something I would invest in. But from my understanding is that many people in the US who can manage more or less like via the 401k, manage their own pension, they can invest into those ETFs. So it would be good for Bitcoin in a way that the ETFs get approved, because it would allow people to put some of their pension savings into Bitcoin. But really, it's not for me. And the whole circus every time they're denied. Even Fidelity, I mean, they're huge, but no, not. It's rejected on some fake grounds. So I think there is something else going on at the SEC. Sorry.
Josh Shigala, they can invest their pensions in gold and diamonds and leverage and all these things, but not a Bitcoin ETF.
No, it's like the way that they stop retail investors trying to get into Bitcoin as well, is that they, you know, that you're allowed to invest in horse races, or you're allowed to like gamble on all these ridiculous, well, things that are totally gamed, that you have very little chance of winning. Yet you're not allowed to buy some Bitcoin using an ETF. I get the feeling that the SEC is finally running scared, and you saw that when Coinbase tried to dare to offer 4% APY on interest. Now, as soon as they do, what's going to happen? Well, anyone with half a brain is going to pull all of their money out of their retail bank and bring it over to Coinbase and stake it somewhere and earn 4% rather than 0.5, whatever it is. Because why wouldn't you? That's just ridiculous. And the SEC was like, whoa, you can't do that. How are you possibly doing that? That's obviously a scam. Where's that money coming from? Well, it's not a scam. It's basically they're using market making, and it's just way more efficient. They're just giving you financial reward for efficiency. And I think the SEC is seeing the threat of crypto, and they've had some big, nice, strong words with the banks that have, allowed them to money launder for so long, of up to $400 billion. I mean, it happens all the time. Banks literally launder money and get fined for it and don't lose their licenses all of the time. Yet these regulators, they stand up there with their high horse and say that they're protecting the little guy, or they're protecting small business, and it's nonsense. They're protecting big business and they're protecting big interests, and this is what it's all about. And this is why Bitcoin ETF like that is not going to get a strong fold. Now, a futures market, that can be fun because you can use that nicely to manipulate the price downward, especially. And there is a lot of evidence that this has been done in the silver markets for many, many years. And so this is the same thing now, like that. It's a nice way to control. The thing with Bitcoin, it's a lot harder to control that, even with a futures market.
Well, as a person with a savings account, I can tell you 4% would be fantastic. This also reminds me of that time in the early Facebook days when everyone who used Facebook knew it was awesome and it would be a really big stock, but the only people who were allowed to invest were major investors like Ashton Kutcher and others like that. Robert Allen, your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF?
The U.S. government's a criminal cabal, so why would they want to empower a system that will remove them from power forever?
Don't sugarcoat it. Don't sugarcoat it there. All right. Exit question, pretty simple. We've said it before. Will there ever be a Bitcoin spot ETF, a real ETF where you can, invest in your retirement account with Bitcoin on the stock market? Will it ever happen? Dan Eve. Uh-oh, dog time.
Dog time. Yes, it will.
Martine Wishmayer.
It will, but not anytime soon.
Josh Segala.
It will, but not in the States.
Robert Allen.
Long time from now, maybe. Like maybe after the U.S. government collapses. And yeah, it's a totally different world. Maybe then.
I don't see how they can stop it. I thought they would have had it by now. I don't see what the big difference is between this and futures. They should grant the ETF. They should let us invest in Bitcoin. One rule for the big money, another rule for the small money. That doesn't seem fair at all. Moving on to issue 5. Drop Bitcoin as legal tender. The IMF urges El Salvador. The big hand of the IMF is finally here. And they've waited till the price of Bitcoin is down, and the president of El Salvador is ironically wearing a McDonald's uniform on Twitter as their time to strike. They've urged El Salvador to stop using Bitcoin as legal tender because of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Martine Wishmayer, will the IMF be successful? Will they stop El Salvador, this breakaway republic, from using Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, the IMF is all about centralized money, and Bitcoin is decentralized, and they didn't like El Salvador doing that. And they gave some fake reasons. No, they're just protecting their own interests. They don't care about El Salvador, to be honest.
I just want to say for a minute how obvious this story would be, and that I could have sent it to myself in an envelope and sealed it and kept it in a jar on Funkin' Wagnall's porch. This is really obvious that they were going to do this. They've been telegraphing this the whole time. Not that I'm quite a big fan of the El Salvador situation, but I do see an obvious connection between breaking free from the IMF, having a bad run in the Bitcoin prices, and the obvious rejoinder by the IMF, come back or you'll be destroyed. Josh Sigala, is the IMF right? Will they be destroyed?
Hey, I tell you who's going to be destroyed, but it's not that. Look, this is kind of like Blockbuster urging Netflix, stop streaming films, Netflix. Can you stick to delivering DVDs? Can you stick to delivering DVDs in the post? We urge you to stop streaming movies. That's all I can say about it. It's the most ludicrous, stupid thing. The IMF needs to shut the hell up, shut the hell down, and just go away. You've done nothing. You know, like I remember Bono with his yellow glasses going around, drop the debt, man, drop the debt in the 80s and the 90s. Like, where are we now?
Hello.
Where are we now, IMF? If people aren't absolutely livid at your pathetic excuse for an existence, that you're still here while millions and millions of people have died, children starving, and then you've got your goal to sit there and tell a country that has taken the first steps to do something actual change, to actually deliver change to its people, just go away.
Historically, it's been very hard for a communist country to exist in a capitalist world. I would say vice versa. It would be very hard for a capitalist country to exist in a communist world. Now we have a Bitcoin country trying to exist in a dollar or a fiat world. Robert Allen, will it survive? Will the experiment of El Salvador survive?
Of course it'll survive. They have the best money on earth. They're just going to become richer and richer every year, and encourage savings, investment, and and they've kicked out the parasites that actually want to enslave their people and try to centrally plan their economy, like all these other IMF disasters all over the world. Enslave them, build crap they don't need, and then make them pay for it for decades and decades and decades. The best take on the IMF I've read recently comes from the Fiat Standard by Saifedean. Highly recommend reading this book. These people are career criminals. They exist to just what does he call them? He calls the IMF the I'll look it up here. He's got a great term for these people, but they're basically just it's the misery industry. That's what he calls it, the misery industry. So they just basically bring misery to the rest of the planet. They pay themselves for it. They always fail because they try to centrally plan, and then they go back and they try to tinker. And they never admit failure. They never admit that their policies don't work. But this is all because of fiat, because the entire thing is backstopped by the Federal Reserve. So, Bitcoin is the antidote, and El Salvador is going to be just fine.
Another good one would be Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the way that they lay one country against the other country, just like cities trying to get a baseball stadium. The competition's all messed up.
Amazing book.
Dan, Eve, your thoughts on El Salvador and the IMF?
Well, I think it's no doubt that now that Bitcoin's down like 45% or something from all-time high, that Bukele and El Salvador are under a bit of pressure. It's heating up. That Bitcoin could go lower, and obviously Bitcoin is quite volatile. But Bukele seems to be like buying the dip, like he's just smashing that plus button on the Domino's pizza app and just like bang, 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 dip, 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 with his McDonald's outfit, which is cool. I like the way you can make a joke of it. But they seem to be getting a lot of interest in the Blockstream supported $1 billion Bitcoin bond. So although they've got their chances of getting this $1.3 billion or something from the IMF as a loan, those hopes are being dashed a little. But the success of the Bitcoin bond will be pretty interesting. But the IMF said that predict that under current policies, the public debt for El Salvador will rise to 96% of GDP by 2026. 96% by 2026, putting the country on an unsustainable path. Well, ladies and gentlemen, according to Statista, in 2020, the US's debt to GDP to debt ratio is 133%, which is very high. Japan, they're not doing too bad, 237%. So obviously, and wasn't but wasn't the Biden admin saying that the debt isn't that bad? It's printing more money, and there's no sort of issue with that. So surely, it just seems like it's one rule for one and one rule for another. And so they're picking on El Salvador because they don't like this Bitcoin experiment. They're laughing at it from behind closed doors and trying to dump on it as much as possible. And I think the biggest thing is that they're scared that it's going to work out. And that Bitcoin's going to do well long term, which it obviously will do. And El Salvador's going to become rich, and the Bitcoin city is going to be big, and they're going to be like even more of a laughing stock for the rest of the world, trying to tweak their little policies that still don't work, and begging for funding.
Well, you can't make an omelet unless you break a few legs. Martine Wishmayer, your thoughts on El Salvador?
They'll do just fine. Okay, if the president survives a major dip, because yes, prices can go lower, but in the long run, yeah, prices will go up, and this will benefit El Salvador. I don't know how it will trickle through down to the people in the street, but it will definitely. I think if it would be a country with their own currency, then it would have been a different story. They would just, have their own money printers and they would switch them on, but they don't. So they already don't have their own national currency. So the only option for them is to select another national currency or another currency, in this case, Bitcoin, that can be manipulated. So at least they will be able to save, because otherwise, well, they'll get all the inflation, but none of the stimulus checks. So yeah, prices will go up. So I think they made a good decision, and they will do it in the long run. But I think Bukele will get a lot of heat when the price goes down even more. So I hope for him that he will survive, and at least until the next bull run, and he'll be the laughing third party. He will be the one left. They'll do okay.
Exit question, forced prediction. How will El Salvador end? IMF crackdown, Bukele exits with briefcase, or total Bitcoin victory, a model and example to other countries? Josh Shigala.
It's hard with dictators because they can be quite benevolent, and I hope that this one is, and that he actually doesn't just run away with private keys or slowly ciphers them off to his family or something. But I think it could end quite well for El Salvador if they keep on the right track and they keep stacking sats or stacking BTC because it's a country. So yeah, my prediction, it'll do well. It'll do very, very, very well, and hopefully other countries around especially I'd like to see Argentina jump on next.
Everyone said the service at Sheep Marketplace was impeccable right until the last weekend when they exit scammed. Robert Allen, predict the future of El Salvador.
I think Bukele is going to become king, and Bitcoiners are going to flock. We're going to build an empire. It's going to be beautiful. So yeah, Bukele for king.
The return of the king. Dan Eve, your prediction.
I think that if we're out of this bull market and we're on the sort of slow drudge to the next halvening, then things can get a bit spicy. But ultimately, there's that 4-year holding method that seems to be proving pretty strong. So as long as you can hold out for that amount of time, then as a dictatorship, you could probably stay in forever, right? So it'll be longer than the 4 years required, and therefore things will go back up positive again.
Always ask the customer if they want to supersize their order. This is called upselling. Martine Wishmayer, would you like fries with that?
Oh, yeah, I'll supersize. I think Dan is right. If he survives this crypto winter, all will be good.
A very exciting and dramatic moment for the leader of El Salvador. Moving on to issue 6, Facebook's cryptocurrency venture to wind down and sell its assets. Yes, it was called Diem. Before that, it was called something else, but soon it will be called nothing. Facebook is not going to make their own cryptocurrency. Working with regulators has been too difficult, and it looks like, according to Brock Pierce and his, I want to call that a Van Dyke, Facebook is selling their cryptocurrency. It's not going to happen. It's over, Johnny. Robert Allen, your thoughts on Facebook and whatever their cryptocurrency used to be called?
I don't know how long Bitcoiners have to be right. You know, it's painful to be right so long and so often and so significantly. But yeah, I mean, we knew this was never going to work. This is like the decentralization theater, just like buzzword, blockchain, blah, 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 corporate bullshit where they try to grab onto some words that sound innovative and pretend like they're innovating. But this is what happens when you have a totally anemic, centrally planned economy. Even these big corporations are essentially like zombie propped up, corporations of the government, gives them their power more or less because of all the rules and regulations and nonsense. So it's not surprising to me that they would just totally fumble on something like this.
All right, I looked it up. It was originally supposed to be called Libra because it was going to set you free. Dan Eve, there's no Libra, there's no DM, there's no Facebucks, Zuckercoin, none of it.
If they had the opportunity, if it did go ahead without the regulation side, to have an instant platform where think about how big some of the biggest companies have recently have popped up. It's from this like viral advertising on Facebook. So if Facebook wanted to become a bank, they could do that very virally, and it could have been very, very successful. As much as Bitcoiners would have absolutely hated it, but they've got the platform, they've got the audience, they are the ad network, right? And you are the product. So it would have been very easy to sell you that little dream of Moon, Facebook Moon, or whatever it's Libra Moon. But it was just never going to happen. That they're already being on the radar for being too big at the moment as a company with the services that they do offer, and they need to clamp down on anything from censorship to terrorism to all sorts. And so it was just never going to happen. So whilst Zuckerberg had his little dream of Zuckbucks, maybe they should have done it without even trying to go for like regulators. They should have literally just done it as a shitcoin launch. Like that would have been kind of at least like semi under the radar, not make a big thing about it or whatever. Even though probably shitcoiners would, but that might have been a better approach. And then then when it becomes, by the time the regulators get to it, it's too big to shut down, and they've got to just kind of work with it rather than shutting it down.
That sounds like exactly what the young Zuckerberg would have done. He would have stolen it from the Winklevi, launched it as a hot or not currency, and rep the whirlwind. Like they say, hackers have to move fast and break things. I think that's the Facebook motto. But in this time, they moved slowly and didn't break anything. I also want to second what Robert said a little while ago about Bitcoiners being tired of being right. They really trotted out everybody for this one. They had all the major papers, all the major players, all the connected people. They were talking to all the countries. Meanwhile, it was just us out here on our little YouTubes and our little Twitters saying, it's going to fail and it's stupid and you should just spend your time adopting Bitcoin, adopting the Lightning Network. Yes, people want to tip each other on Facebook. It's a cool idea. There's already Facebook birthdays, Facebook fundraisers. All of these things could be cryptoized, but they didn't need to make their own coin to do it. But this happens all the time. Everybody looks at Bitcoin and says, hey, I could make my own coin. Martine Wishmayer, you're our facial hair correspondent. What do you think of Brock Pierce's Van Dyke? How's it working out on the child actor? Would you
Yeah,
suggest this look for Zuckerberg?
it does look better. I think he should, like, get trim the hair on the side instead of the long hair. But I'm not here for fashion advice, to be honest.
I think he looks like a pirate.
Yes, yes. Well, he is in a way, but it's funny that, like, now it's 2022. Facebook is shelving his shitcoin plans, and before I joined General Bytes, it was a year before, in 2015, I was approached by a headhunter that wanted me for the Facebook blockchain team in London at the time. So it means that in 2015, they were already working on it. So for 7 years, they've been burning money like mad and talking to regulators and just really high burn rate of spending that money. And then the result is nothing. I mean, what did they sell it for to this Californian bank? What, 200 million or something? It's like peanuts compared to what they paid to set it up. So, in a way, it's, me going giggling, because, it's Facebook and nobody really likes Facebook. And it shows that, if you have a lot of money and you're a large company, you just can't march and push your way into a market. It's the public, and in this case also the governments, that just rejected it. It's like, no, we don't want your like coin or suck coin or whatever. We just don't. And I think that's good. The market has spoken. It's exit for Facebook's Meta coin or whatever. And yeah, perfect. I really like this. It was put a smile on my face when reading it.
And this isn't the last we've heard of a massive internal project not being released. We've heard of banks having their own crypto projects, PayPal having its own crypto projects, even as far to have the marketing designed, the logos designed, everything designed in-house, hundreds of millions, I don't know, lots of money spent. And then they just scuttle the whole thing. It's just like, yeah, that was fun, but we don't think it'll work. And remember what Steve Jobs says, it's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy. Josh Shigala, your thoughts on Facebook cryptocurrency? You're muted.
I would never use Zuckbucks for sure. Like, it would be highly offensive to my being, but I would do everything in my heart to fight for their right to try it out. I think what's really unfortunate is that they didn't try it because it failed. They didn't try it because they couldn't even get it going because of these ridiculous regulators around the world and the state forcing it down, because they knew it was a dangerous move. The government knew that pegging, having a digital currency with a vast network effect that Facebook had, and then backing it with multiple currencies from around the world to soften the blows of one currency being destroyed, was a very powerful idea. And the fact that they are not even allowed to try it is to me quite abhorrent. But yeah, I feel, of course, if they did release it, I would never use it. It's a centralized nightmare coin, and it could have gone south for human freedom as well. So there's that. So I'm kind of, in two sides about this subject. The other thing is that when to Martin's point, when companies, this is why greed is important, because when companies use vast amounts of resources, they don't just burn cash. They pay it to all of this talented people. They pay it to everyone that's building and making stuff and then trying things, and all of these people get to live and pay their families and eat and save, and this is how wealth gets distributed, by trying things out, and sometimes those things fail. So yeah, but I don't think it's the end of it. Actually, I don't think. Look, the genie's out of the bottle. We have cryptocurrency now, and so Facebook is eventually going to have its own cryptocurrency. I said it in a video that I've got on YouTube from 2011, I think, like that Facebook will eventually have its own cryptocurrency, and it will. There's no ifs or buts around it. Yeah, they might not right now in this way, but it just makes sense. And the other thing I really liked about Libra, actually, the idea that I liked is when they announced Libra, Zuckerberg started talking really interesting stuff. He started to talk about encrypting everything for the first time, and in having ultimate privacy for everyone within the Facebook, all the chat apps and everything like that. And I was thinking, why? Why would you want that? Because then you don't have the advertising revenue anymore, because you can't, read everyone's secrets. And it started to make sense. Well, if you can print your own money and you control the economy, then that's a whole new revenue stream and a whole different revenue stream. Maybe he's trying to port over to a new revenue stream. Maybe he sees the evils of his way of using the new digital gold of data, and rather going for the digital gold of crypto. But yeah.
A few sats on every Facebook message, a few sats on every like, instead of advertising. I don't know, kind of like that. But again, people don't like to pay for things. The other thing to worry about there is, I forgot something about Facebook. Moving on to the last issue, we're running out of time. Bitcoin has become so mainstream that LeBron James, the king of basketball and fashion, has made a quote unquote crypto promise. The LeBron James Family Foundation has engaged in a multi-year partnership with, yes, once again, Crypto.com, Matt Damon, and Tom Brady and others to create schools in Akron, Ohio, and do other good things with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Martine Wishmayer, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? I know you've been with Bitcoin for a long time. We were very small once, but we are very big now. What do you think?
Well, I think we'll only grow bigger as Bitcoin. So I don't see this as I don't see any moon or anything. It will just keep on accumulating and sucking cash out of any other assets we have. It's just the way it works. Yeah, I think it's good. It's good that Crypto.com signed up another famous person. So they're having Matt Damon and now LeBron, and it's I wonder who will be next. Who do you think will be next? I have no idea.
It's harder to get bigger than LeBron. Historically, Michael Jordan, Joe Montana. I don't know. Josh Shigala, you've been with Bitcoin a long time. There were points of time in Bitcoin where you tell people, hey, I'm into Bitcoin. And they're like, oh, you must be a drug dealer on the Silk Road. Now it seems a lot more like you're wearing a silk suit with LeBron James, Tom Brady, and Matt Damon. What do you think about this amazing change in just a few years?
Yeah, well, I mean, all I'm waiting for now is the little Lebowski Urban Achievers to get in there. And
yeah, the Achievers.
Yeah, and everyone will be happy. But yeah, it's only a matter of time, right? All of the big names jump in.
The Achievers, and proud we are of all of them. Robert Allen, is there anyone bigger than LeBron that you could think of that would get into crypto? We're so mainstream that we're mainstream on mainstream on mainstream. Tarantino is doing NFTs. South Park is brutally making fun of NFTs. There's almost Saturday Night Live did a bit on NFTs. Crypto is made fun of casually on late night shows throughout the land. Where else could we go from here?
With celebrities, it's a good question. I don't really follow too many celebrities all that much these days, to be honest. So just not in my mind. I guess I'll just say that I'm a little saddened. I don't know. I didn't think about what it would look like when Bitcoin went mainstream, but the reality is you get a lot of these hangers on and these people who come in last minute and try to make a show of it and pretend that they were Well, I don't know. Maybe these guys are still early though. Let's be honest, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, perhaps for their IQ and or experience in life, they are ahead of the curve. So I shouldn't be so judgmental. Yeah, everyone's welcome. I'm glad. Of course, I don't like the crypto stuff. I like Bitcoin. I don't like NFTs, generally speaking. Although I do think maybe on Liquid for a video game, I could potentially see some utility. I see something there, but I don't like the art NFTs. I think that's totally silly. So I don't know. It's just we're gonna have to get used to a lot of clown world nonsense in and around Bitcoin as it grows.
It has been interesting. Bitcoin was our little thing, and we had our little group of people that were into it. And now, it grows up and it grows up and it grows up and it's all grown up. And you got Paris Hilton talking to Jimmy Fallon about their Bored Ape Yacht Club characters. And a few days later, Gwyneth Paltrow is in it, and she's animated her character so it looks just like her, which is not really the point. Dan, Eve, is there anyone bigger than LeBron? We're through the roof here. Tarantino, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, illegally making NFTs, going to get destroyed by Miramax, who owns the screenplay, but still doesn't care, wants the money anyway. Where else can we go from here? What do you think about Bitcoin being so mainstream?
Well, I said a while back that I'd really just because of his voice, right? I'd love to hear, Morgan Freeman giving a bit of an explainer about Bitcoin. He does really cool explainy things, right? He does cool documentaries. Like, so, hi, I'm Morgan Freeman, and this is a documentary about Bitcoin. That's got a ring to it. He's going to get a lot of people involved, right? And he played God in that Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey thing. What was it?
Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty, exactly. So imagine if he dressed like God and talked about Bitcoin. That would get loads of people in. So maybe Crypto.com should poach him next. But I think it's in general. I think it's cool that as days go by, we're hearing more and more kind of celebrity figures that get involved in Bitcoin, and whether you like that celebrity or not, or think, hey, it's kind of like Bitcoin's reached a stage now where, like, I got a friend who no matter how he just listened to so many bands, right? But as soon as they made it big, he'd be like, they're shit. I'd be like, yeah, but you used to love them. And he's like, yeah, but they're shit now. Like, but they still, it's the same, like, rough, you don't even like the old stuff. Yeah, it was shit. And it's kind of like that with sometimes with Bitcoiners. They're like, oh, celebrities, keep out of it. And you're like, yeah, but it shows that people are actually cottoning on, right? It's a good thing that if you want a good idea, if you make good music, if you've got sound money, that you want the more and more people to hear about it. So whether you prefer, obviously, that they hear about it from, say, Morgan Freeman dressed as God or something, than Katy Perry and her like Monero nails, for example. But it's still doing the word of Lord Satoshi.
This Crypto.com commercial writes itself, Dan. It's especially through the bear market. Andy Dufresne hodled his Bitcoins through a mile of shit and came out freedom on the other side. Say Wataneho. And Katy Perry, call me. Anyway, we're running out of time. It's time to go predictions. Josh Segala, predict the future of Bitcoin. What will happen in the future?
The future is bright. When you send a Bitcoin, someone else gets it, or not. Maybe you've sent it to a burn address. But that's my prediction. I'm actually, it's the Lightning Network that's just absolutely blowing up at the moment. I'm really just enjoying the Lightning Network. I'm enjoying actually seeing for the first time again the spark in people's eyes when they send a transaction that arrives instantly, and you say to them, that transaction's already had 10,000 confirmations, and that person got it instantly. So, and they're like, what, 10,000 confirmation? So it's really, really nice.
10,000 confirmations, or you could just send a telegram. Years later, someone might get it on a rainy day at an intersection. Robert Allen, your thoughts, prediction for the future?
I believe that Bitcoin and Friends will be the most popular show on earth in 10 years.
Yay, Bitcoin and
It will
friends.
totally beat South Park. I think you're right there, Robert.
Maybe you have to make
Hopefully.
an altcoin though. Uh-oh. Dan Eve, prediction. Go ahead.
I predict that more people actually, or loads of people will go and watch the Bitcoin show. I think that they'll watch the Bitcoin cartoon. I think it's epic. And I also think that I predict that my story of the week, because I had this one prepared, is that I have COVID. And my other prediction that I also have prepared is that I won't have it next week.
Yeah.
Very good. It's been a while since I've seen Bitcoin and Friends, Dan. I should probably go back and watch it all again. It was pretty epic. A lot of crazy stuff happened. I'm sure I've forgotten some of it by now. Martine Wishmayer, prediction for the future?
Not a real prediction, but I do want to say that people, we're always focused on higher prices, but sometimes we should just stop and realize that 10 years ago, Bitcoin was worth $1. I mean, $1, and it's only 10 years ago. So we tend to get like caught up in the moment, and we're just like, oh, moon. But come on, the rocket ships weren't built in 10 years' time, and it will take some little bit more time maybe than we'd be willing to wait. But if you stop and realize that 10 years ago, Bitcoin was only $1, then I think it's a fantastic achievement. And, many more years will follow.
Well, Rome didn't collapse in a day, as they say. Josh Segala, story of the week?
Yeah, I also, like Dan, enjoyed getting COVID. It was at this time last week, I was starting to feel a bit woozy. And then the next day I was just crook as a dog. And the day after, crook as a dog again, headache. And then the next day I was pretty good again, some body aches. So day 4, I was totally cool. And wow. Just really, I've had worse flus, I've got to say. I mean, like any bad flu, I wouldn't want to be old and frail or have some sort of, stage 4 cancer or something. That's probably not, but it's probably not worth shutting the entire world around. Anyway, it's I think a lot of the fear that people have is the massive clickbait focus on the croc brain that the media's done for the last year. And so if you do get COVID, it's not the end of the world. Really get prepared though, because you are going to get it. This thing is so viral at the moment. Well, if they say it's true, whatever, I don't know. But if it's this Omicron version, it's really, really viral. But it's really not that bad. It's just it's like a flu. It's just look after yourself. And
ibuprofen, paracetamol, and some throat sweets.
Yeah, and just get chill out. So it's just so many people get so. I've seen it online with friends of mine. They're like, they're so scared, and I think the fear really makes them even sicker because they're just so. They've had 2 years of fear just relentlessly smashed in on them, and it's just it's not that bad.
I wish the world would go back to people not talking every time they had a cold and just sharing it with everyone and making a big deal of it.
Totally.
Well, there have been worse flus, but it did kill the unvaccinated Meatloaf, dead at 74, an incredible singer and artist. I really liked Meatloaf. It's sad to see him go. Robert Allen from Bitcoin and Friends, the excellent show. Everyone should go Google on YouTube, Bitcoin and Friends. Like Martine said, it's like South Park for Bitcoin. It's irreverent and spirited and funny. And there's whole episodes. It's like a 20, 30-minute show. It's like a real TV show on YouTube that's all user supported. You guys should go donate and check out Bitcoin and Friends. Thanks to Robert for being our guest this week. Yeah. And your story of the week. Go ahead, Robert.
Wait, what am I saying?
Story of the week. Tell us more about Bitcoin and Friends. What you guys are up to?
Right.
Happening in the future. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So we are retooling the entire show. I know a lot of people like the original season. I'm proud of it overall, but we're trying to make the show a little bit more family friendly. A little bit more applicable to a wider audience. So we're going to be relaunching it. It'll probably be 6 months to a year from now. We're taking our time. We've rewritten the entire, the entire first season, all new scripts, gotten rid of a lot of characters that were kind of muddling up things. And so we've really tried to focus on the core characters in the show. I think it feels a bit more like some of the classic sitcoms where you just really see these characters interacting and developing as the season goes on. It's going to be really good. We've got new animation. Everything's being improved basically. And so we're going to be relaunching it. And hopefully we get picked up, although I'm not holding my breath, but we'd love to try to get a network involved if we can help it. Otherwise it'll be on YouTube again. So, but in the meantime, go check out the old first season, send us some love. We're raising money on our website, which is btcandfriends.com. We have a BTC Pay server set up. You can tip us with Lightning or regular Bitcoin on main chain. Lots of love to the Bitcoin community and appreciate the support.
And there's so many great ideas on that show, like when Bitcoin's like pregnant with new Bitcoins and he like poops them out every 10 minutes, like the block reward. So many ideas, like pukes them out. Sorry, it's been a while. And but just the great ideas and the visual way that you explained the Bitcoin story was so great. Even if the early episode's a little coarse or something, I think it was super fun. Definitely worth checking out. Dan, Eve, a story of the week from you, maybe some thoughts about Bitcoin and Friends?
To be honest, I haven't watched it since, I think you showed it to me in Malta when we went to we watched it in Malta in when was that? Like 2019.
6 months ago, there was the latest episode, right? Then, oh, sorry.
I haven't watched it for a while. I didn't see the most recent one. So I first saw it in Malta with Mad Bitcoins. But I thought it was great. I think that that you said you're trying to tone it down a bit, but I like I'm kind of immature. I like the vulgar the vulgar part of it. I like the effing and blinding and a cartoon an innocent cartoon character swearing. I think kind of that's cool. So but yeah, with Tom, I think it's a great explanation of like how the puking up the block, puking up more Bitcoin every 10 minutes, and it's always really difficult explaining to people how Bitcoin is mined, right? So send them towards Bitcoin and Friends.
And all this stuff about Vitalik, and he was so much in love with Bitcoin, and there's just so much good stuff there. I'm remembering more of it now. Martin, a story of the week, or your thoughts on Bitcoin Friends too?
This is definitely a must see if any of the viewers haven't seen it. I think the Bitcoin and Friends episodes were like definitely back in the days were sort of like, it was what we all watched. It was like the cartoon we watched. It's nice, and it's good to hear that it's coming back. So if people haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because I can't wait for new episodes to be released.
Thanks, Martin.
Very good. And I think we're going to head towards the end of the show here. So remember, there's still a chance to push that thumbs up buttons and to subscribe down below. Thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat. If you're watching this later on, you can always leave a comment, have a discussion down there in the group. There's only a couple of non-spam comments these days, but I do read them, all 2 of them. And then I read the 20 or 30 spam comments, and we try to flag those as soon as we can. But thanks to everybody for watching. Until next time, bye.